Can you please call the roll?
Commissioner Anderson,
Here.
Commissioner Burton,
Here.
Commissioner Murray, Commissioner Smithwick-Ailey,
Here.
Commissioner Topfest,
I'm here.
and Chair Baba.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. Are there any changes to the agenda? Any objections to approving the agenda? Hearing none, the agenda is approved. And for our meeting on November 1st, 2023, are there any changes to the minutes? Any objections to approving the minutes? Hearing none, the minutes for the regular PZ meeting for November 1st are approved. There are no presentations with prior notice, but there are some public hearings for Resolution PZ 2023-023, granting approval of a conditional use permit for the development of an indoor recreational facility located at 526 Arena Ave. May I have a motion to approve?
I move to approve resolution PZ 2023-023, granting approval of a conditional use permit for the development of an indoor recreational facility located at 526 Arena Avenue.
Thank you. We have a second?
Second.
Thanks. Can we have the staff report, please?
Yes, thank you. So this is the conditional use permit for the field house. One of the other things you'll be considering right after this is the variance. And so this, your approval of the conditional use permit will include a condition that it's, that it also requires the approval of, or I should say the variance requires the approval of the conditional use permit. But they're linked, as you can imagine. As you know, this will be located immediately adjacent to the field house. The parcel that it sits are next to the sports center. The parcel that it sits on is 121 acres. As you know, it's developed with a boat launch, campground, fishing access, ball fields, historical museum, rodeo grounds. It's an active spot and it is accordingly zoned parks and recreational. Utilities are provided or are at the site and will be connected to the field house. We did receive the application for this development on November 3rd. And the total square area of the indoor rec facility will be 52,112 square feet. The Parks and Rec District is intended to provide areas, public and private, for recreational activities and community events to enhance the city's quality of life. Indoor recreational facilities are a conditional use within the district. And when we look at the standards in 1710-270, which is the Park and Recreational District, you'll see that all the standards are met for lot size, lot width, lot coverage, and yard setbacks. The one that isn't met is the building height. And again, that'll be the variance that you'll be considering later. Looking at off-street parking and loading. All parking for the indoor facility, the indoor recreational facility or the field house will be located on the same lot as the principal structure. However, there will be some overflow parking at the sports center, and there's also a gravel lot that will remain available for both the sports center and the field house.
Where's the gravel lot located?
The gravel lot, perhaps, yeah, Jen, you can point that out there.
Is that right by the ball fields?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
You got the picture up
Radio,
there,
yeah.
actually. No, go to your right.
The right of the green.
Yep, right next
Mhm.
to the intersection of home access, that one small parcel on home run
Yeah, the
access.
home run.
That's the gravel lot that's
Yeah.
currently there and has been used for baseball parking or for overflow parking for the sports center.
Yeah, I was just thinking about the road that needs to go in there at some point along those lot lines. And if it's in our court to initiate that. sometime.
Yeah, at some
Later.
point,
Yeah.
we've had this discussion as well, in fact, recently, about this whole area and the need to make sure we provide access and forewarn any future developers on that
Yeah,
lot that there's going to be changes. And So we're talking about, yeah, developing a plan for that area and trying to identify a good location for the road and whether those parcels need to be combined or further divided. But that'll be something that I'm sure you'll be seeing sometime in the future. The number of parking spaces that are required, well, I should start by saying this facility is going to include, of course, the rec uses. It will also have some office uses and some storage uses. And based on those uses, the parking requirements vary. And when we add up the total for each of those uses, we come up with 339 parking spaces being required. And when we look at the old sports center, we don't have any historic parking information on it at the time. Well, we just don't have any records. We're not sure what the intent was, but if it was to be built today, we would be looking at that sports center requiring about 410 spaces. And if you add that with the field house, you come up with 749 spaces. But because these two facilities are located next to each other, and that major events aren't going to be scheduled to overlap, these two structures can share the parking as it's being proposed. And so with the construction of the field house and its associated parking, 205 additional spaces, a total of 564 parking spaces will be provided for both facilities. And so therefore, we will be granting a waiver for 185 parking spaces because we believe that there's adequate parking at this point for both those facilities as it's proposed in the diagram there that Jen's got up on the screen.
Madam Chair, I had a question, just a related question. I was thinking about the access, the road. I mean, that's a 2-lane road. Clearly, they're probably gonna have to be a stoplight there. You know, it's always been a challenge getting in and out. It's obviously gonna have to be widened too. Is that in the plan?
Not at this point. The road, or I believe it's called Arena Avenue, going into the field house and the sports center, there's enough room there to accommodate a wider road, but there isn't a plan for it at this point. And likewise, we've been asking DOT for a number of years to try to, one, do a traffic count at that intersection to hopefully verify that, yes, we do need a signal, and then secondly, provide us some funding to put a signal in. They're very expensive, but I think with the addition of the field house, we'll see that it's going to be necessary to have some traffic control there.
Yeah, it would seem to me it'd be be part of maybe something to start that. Or I mean, if you already have that conversation, to have a further conversation and also at least have a turning lane of some sort so that people can turn right. And,
there is a
kind of
turning lane
thing.
currently
Is
coming
there?
out of the sports center. You can turn to the right in one lane, turn to the left in the other. And then
Okay,
so
there's enough there.
there's
Yeah, I
3
had
lanes
never
there
thought about
currently.
it. I didn't pay enough attention, but thank you.
Hey, John.
Yeah.
Commissioner Anderson. On this, it says because of the shared parking lot arrangement and because major events will not be scheduled simultaneously, an administrative waiver is granted for 185 parking spaces. Is that like code that they can't have 2 events at the same time? If there's a hockey game and then a soccer tournament?
No, it's not code, but Joel has recognized that that it would be chaos to try
Yeah.
to have 2 big events.
So it's an understanding with Parks and Rec that like, this is
Yeah.
what you got. Okay, I was just
Yeah,
curious.
so
I just didn't
he
know.
basically said there's no way, that we can handle not only the cars, but their staff to function with 2 big events happening at the same time. So that he was comfortable then with as are we, with the number of parking spaces based on that thought that we can't have you know, a big, we can't have the Brown Bears going in one and a tournament going in the field house at the same time. It just won't work.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
Paving, so everything that is on the screen there will be paved. Same thing for lighting and let's see, snow storage, as you know, the code does require space for snow storage. It hasn't been identified on the site, so we are recommending that our staff and design consultants review the site plan to ensure that adequate snow storage space exists. And same with directional signs, that directional signage and pavement be developed for the lot. Moving on to landscaping. As you know, right-of-way landscaping is required when new development occurs. In this case, there is going to be adequate trees left, both on the K Beach Road. And is that K Beach? No, I can't tell. Oh, no. Oh, okay. Well, if we don't have K Beach, we can go to Arena first. Let's go to Arena Avenue coming in. As Jen was showing in those pictures, there's a lot of existing vegetation, trees that meets our code and counts actually for the right-of-way vegetation. So we're in good shape there. We don't have to require or plant any additional trees for right-of-way landscaping for this project. Oh, okay, great. Yep. And then there's also a requirement for parking lot landscaping. And that's required whenever we have a parking lot that has over 40 spaces. And if in that case, it requires 5% of the lot to be landscaped. When it's over 200 spaces, it requires 8% of the lot. So that's what we're looking at here. So using that 8% and knowing that we've got about an area of approximately 224,000 square feet for the parking area, we end up with about 18,000 square feet of parking lot landscaping that's required. And the site plan that has been submitted and is before you has over 22,000 square feet of parking lot landscaping, which does satisfy the requirements of Soldotna Municipal Code. Let's see. So that, those address then the landscaping code, the parking code, and the zoning code for Parks and Rec. The last piece of code that we have to look at is the conditional use section, 1710-400, and that begins on page 16. And there are 8 specific standards that have to be met in order for the permit to be granted. The first one is that the proposed development satisfies the specific standards associated with that conditional use listed in the code, if any. And there aren't any specific standards listed within the code for indoor facilities, so that standard is met. The second standard is that the use is in harmony with the comprehensive plan and surrounding land uses. Staff finds that this standard is met. The project is in harmony with the plan and with surrounding land uses. As you know, the surrounding land uses include all those things I said earlier: rodeo fields, ball fields, campgrounds, and so on. So staff does find that this is the standard is met. The third standard is that the use meets the general standards of the zoning code and the intent of the zoning district in which it is located. Staff finds this standard is partially met. The proposed field house will require a building height variance, but is otherwise consistent and in harmony with the intent of general standards of the zoning district. And as I've stated, a separate resolution considering the variance will be coming up next. The fourth standard is that the use be located and arranged on the site to avoid significant noise, glare, odor, or other nuisances and dangers. Staff finds this standard is met. The development is located next to the sports center and outdoor recreational areas of Centennial Park. We don't expect any noise, glare, odor, or other nuisances and dangers to be present. But the only thing that we could think of that might cause an issue is increased ambient light from the building and the expanded illumination in the parking lot. And so one recommendation is that we just look at providing the appropriate shield so that the light is directed down and not up. The fifth standard is that the proposed development not significantly impair the value of adjoining property. Staff finds this standard is met. Fieldhouse is similar to its neighboring uses, and we are not aware of any evidence that would suggest that the Fieldhouse would affect adjoining property values. The sixth standard is that the size and scale of the use is such that it be adequately served by existing public service and facilities. As I mentioned, sewer and water do exist already on this property and serve the sports center and will now serve the field house. So we will be in good shape there, and that standard is met. Seventh, granting of the conditional use shall not be harmful to the public safety, health, or welfare, and staff finds this standard is met. Again, it's consistent with neighboring uses, and it should have, if anything, it should have a very positive effect on health, welfare, and public safety. And then 8, last is that we have to make sure that the development is current with its payments to the city. Being city-owned property, we think that we're in good shape there. So that standard is met. We did mail 20 notices to property owners within 300 feet of the development. We haven't heard from anybody. We also received no objections as it was circulated within the different departments of the city. So what you have there then, excuse me, is a series of conditions that the staff is recommending for approval. Those are also stated in the resolution. And I'll go through them quickly. So the first one is that construction and maintenance be in accordance with the application that was submitted. The second is that an off-street parking waiver will be granted and that all 483 spaces in the renovated area shall be constructed according to the approved site plan prior to issuance of a final certificate of occupancy for the building. The third condition is that the construction of an indoor recreational facility is subject to approval of a height variance. Fourth is the applicant must obtain a building permit prior to construction. Fifth is all landscaping shall be installed prior to October 31st, 2025, and prior to issuance of a final certificate of occupancy. 6 is landscaping beds containing existing native vegetation counting towards the right-of-way and the right-of-way landscaping shall be flagged to avoid site disturbances if land clearing is occurring. 7 is that paving shall be completed by October 31st, 2025. 8 is city staff and design consultants shall review the site plan to ensure adequate snow storage space exists. 9 is landscaped areas shall be protected from impacts resulting from snow storage and removal operations. 10 is plans for directional signage and pavement marking shall be developed. And 11 is submission of a sign permit for any signage. And that, excuse me, is the end of the staff report, and I'd be happy to take any questions before or after the public hearing.
We can open and close the public hearing. So there's nobody here to make any comments, and now we'll move on to commissioner comments and questions for staff.
Commissioner Anderson here. Thank you, John, for that. I was curious when it comes to the landscaped areas that we have drawn up here. They're like in rows that are going to divide the parking lot up quite a bit. And I was wondering if it was just discussed or thought about of like different ways to do it that would create more open areas for plowing. Because I know like when you have nothing in the way, it's easier to just run your plow where you need to. And if someone leaves their car overnight, now like the plow truck can't get that row. And then you got to rope off an area like they do at the heliport where I work. And now that whole row is shut down until that car gets out, or then you got to tow that car. But if there's just more areas for the plow to maneuver around instead of just running straight down the parking lot with the landscaping, I think it would look nice, but I'm just thinking of practicality of in the wintertime, we've all lived here long enough and been to the sports center enough that it's kind of chaotic. And now you've got lanes, aisles that you have to go down when you'll probably just pull through the parking lot and go out the other direction and just kind of everybody disperses out however they need to. I think there's some round ones currently there. If like that type of landscaping is thought about, or just anything that doesn't cut the parking lot into 3 lanes.
We did talk about, and our maintenance director would probably be very happy to hear your comment. So we did talk about this at length, and there's certain things that were done to accommodate. One is, well, I should say first though, is that our code does require a vegetative strip, and I think it's either 8 or 10 feet wide for every 3rd row of parking.
Hmm.
And so one is, it's required by code, but that secondly, these aren't just landscaping, it's also our drainage. It's where all the runoff is going. So these accomplish a couple things. They provide for the landscaping, and then the entire parking lot site is drained into those areas. And so that's where the stormwater goes. One of the other amendments or changes or thoughts about this was to ensure ease of plowing was that it's not curbed, and there's no cement block. So it should be easy to drop the plow and run right down and not have, to dodge either bump outs on the ends of the aisles, which are very common, or dodge the parking bumpers. But CO is here, and he might have some things if you want to step up. And you got anything you want to add to it, CO? You have to come up and introduce yourself. So we have to get you on the record.
You have to turn the microphone on too. We're very official here. Yep.
It does work. Okay. Last meeting is that light didn't work. Good evening. I'm CO Rudstrom, Project Manager for Public Works Department. I'm kind of the face of this project for the city. So I've been involved in the design and the layout and working with consultants and all that. Your concerns about snow plowing are important ones. This is actually the more simplified plan. It was more complicated before. And as John alluded to, there are, parking lots are challenging to design and build because there's lots of competing things. There's the aesthetics, making it look nice, dealing with the stormwater on site. That's just a good way to take care of our environment these days. You don't want all the runoff to run off that parking lot and down the hill into the river. So it keeps all the crud on site, all the silt and so on site. And then controlling the flow of the traffic also is an important part of it. This is the modern way of building parking lots, these long linear things. And at the end of the event, you don't have cars going every which way, which makes it safer for pedestrians and whatnot. So I think the parking lot is a good compromise, and it is going to work out well for us. And we will have, I know as we look at the parking numbers, we're displacing some and we're adding others. When the whole project is done, we're going to have more parking than we currently do. And it's going to be a good situation. Because I'm sure if anyone's been to a Brown Bears game or something, it is a busy spot.
Thank you.
I have a couple questions too on the parking lot. In line with that, it doesn't appear that there's any way to pull through for a bus or Suburban that's pulling a trailer with the team's gear.
Oh, no, there is. It is laid out with a nice, I don't know which
Those aren't
drawing.
landscaping strips between every parking.
There is, but yes, this view shows it better. That parking lot on the right with all those long
Okay.
strips, that's off to the right.
And then that other one. is
The
not.
one
Okay.
right there, thank you, yes, that's the cursor.
Okay,
That's designed as a pickup drop-off area. And that island does have a curb around it. It's a safe spot for pedestrians to get off the bus, unload their bags. And it's going to be a nice pickup drop-off area that's safe and allows whether buses or cars that we definitely took that into account.
okay. And the ones down there don't have that landscaping strip people will just be able to pull straight through and take two parking
That
spaces.
part that Jen just circled there,
Yeah.
we're not doing any work on that part of the parking. That's just existing parking lot. We're not touching it. That will stay open.
Okay.
Which will be a spot where the bus drivers can continue to practice backing their buses up and so on. That's
Yeah.
what happens in that space currently, and
Yeah.
it'll still be available for that.
Okay. The other thing I was wondering about is often right now, when there's a big game or an event, people do on-street parking on both sides, where right next to all the signs that say don't ever park here, like that.
Right.
But, is that,
Well, hopefully
possible that we could add that?
we are going to have more parking than there is right now.
Mhm.
Right now, we are underparked for big
Mhm.
events, definitely.
Do you know how many, spots we currently have?
They're hard to count.
Yeah.
Because there are some that are striped and painted and others that are not, but we're gonna have. I'm sorry, I don't remember the exact numbers now, but we will have significantly more parking when we're done.
Jen's looking it up, I think. Yeah. I'm mostly curious because there's times now that there's not enough space, so I'm just hoping we're adding enough extra spaces.
Yes, and I'm really sorry. I should have had those
Mhm.
numbers ready for you. I apologize for that, but it is. When this is all completed, we're building significantly more parking than what we are displacing.
369 is the number we currently have.
Okay, so we're more than doubling it. Oh, only
It-
205 more. Oh, right, we're not doing the 700 something. We're just.
Right. So go from
Okay.
the 369 to 564. So that's, yes, we're not doubling it, but it's a pretty
Yeah.
big increase, which I think is going to be adequate for
Mhm.
Brown Bears.
I think
games
my
and so on.
only like exception to that and the answer that, well, we won't ever have two things happening at once is that will it inhibit us from hosting something like the Peninsula Winter Games or the Arctic Winter Games? Where there are hopefully, things going on in both.
Well, there is, as we spoke earlier, there is a lot of other space around there towards the rodeo grounds and the ball field.
For
There's
overflow.
tons of parking. And if we're going to host the Arctic Winter Games, then we get a shuttle and run people back or forth, that's, I think this facility, like a lot of facilities or towns, people might say we have a lack of parking, but actually we just have, problem isn't a lack of parking. It's the problem is people want to park really close.
Yeah,
Yeah.
true. Mhm.
So yeah, I think, yes, with all that extra space by the ball fields, if we were to host a giant event.
Yeah.
I think that could be done.
Okay.
And that's gonna come up this spring when we're,
mean,
or
yeah,
this summer,
hopefully
when
we
we're
will
under
be able to-
construction.
Yeah.
That's gonna be a challenge.
Yeah.
People might have to park over there, so.
And will the parking lot still be used for overflow campers? Because with that landscaping, it's going to limit that quite a bit too.
That will make it more challenging, yeah. The space to the south, like we're saying, where they are parking all the school buses practice and stuff, that's still gonna be wide open. So that won't change, and they will still easily be able to put campers in there.
Thanks.
Were you talking about behind right here?
Well, I mean, no, currently right now, they fill this whole thing up with
Oh, right.
campers and stuff in the summer. for
What about
overflow.
behind the existing sports center now, where that parking is back there? It's kind of dirt. Has that been thought about of including that and paving that and making that part of this area?
Yeah, that's for sure part of the long-range plan and is not included in the scope of this project. But yes, that area needs probably some more attention, yeah, but it's not included in the scope of this project.
Okay, and then also, while I have you here, this is
Mhm.
perfect. I actually had this question for a while. While we bring in all the contractors, and we've got all the building supplies and everything here, and we're building this, would it be a good time to maybe put some bathrooms over in that side of the existing sports center, like an exterior area there? You know what I'm saying?
Where?
Or on the
Where?
backside of the proposed building, just some bathrooms on that end of the whole area.
Oh,
Oh, by the entrance to the walking loop.
Yeah, everybody just goes out the back doors right now at the sports center.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
I-
just wondering, like, we're gonna pay all this money to bring all these contractors here, all these building supplies, And if you want to do a little addition like that, pretty good time to do it instead of closing this project down and then bringing, if you were to do it later. I just didn't know if anybody thought about it, looked at it. It seems like
No,
a good time to
this-
talk about it now.
Right, this project is, that's not in this project, but what I will say, the existing ice arena, the sports center, we're currently looking at doing the basic original or ground level conceptual studying on replacing the mechanical plant. You know, we just did a little facelift for that building and remodeled the offices and stuff. But the mechanical plant, the refrigeration system is whatever, 40 years old and it's due. It's been well maintained, it's working well, but it's, you know, reached its useful life. So we're doing a very preliminary look at that right now. What's it going to take to replace that mechanical plant? In a lot of ice arenas, our arena currently is an Olympic size sheet of ice. A lot of ice arenas are going to the NHL size sheet, which is actually narrower. That's just the way arenas are going. I'm not a hockey guy, but that's what they're doing. So what happens with that is if you have this narrower sheet of ice, well, one, it's less ice, so it reduces your operating cost. But then also, as you know, that the west side of the arena where those collapsible bleachers are, that might open up more space to put in more locker rooms or other facilities in that side. We have more and more locker rooms all the time. So if we were to add bathrooms or something, that would be the time to do it. When we're looking at this upgrading the mechanical plant and bleachers and all that, that would probably be part of that.
Okay.
And we're just getting into the, just very starting that, looking into that.
Okay. Yeah, thank you.
Yep.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Murray, isn't there kind of like an, not really platted, but isn't there a back road that comes back to Kalafonsky that people use or not? You know, coming from the parking lot or from where the new field house, isn't there like something back there? I'm just thinking, I remember there is.
Yeah, there is a road that you can come in on Home Run Circle there and go to the left, and that road takes you over to the Sports Center parking lot. And so some people, when it's very busy, will both go out Arena Avenue and down that road to Home Run Avenue and make a left or right out of there just to avoid.
Yeah, I'm just, you know, but it's not very well improved or anything. It's just a back door. I mean, is there any contemplation that we'd have two exits or that some of the traffic, the parking would go that way instead of going to Arena? Because they're, you know, as Jenny said, that gets, you know, when they're, even now, that gets to be pretty congested and pretty hectic when there's a large event, you know. And we don't, it's not paved or anything. It's just
Right.
an access road.
No, we're very much aware and feel the same way you do, and that's why we're really trying to get a controlled a light there to make it at Arena Avenue, to make it a safer place to go. I would anticipate also that road would be eventually will be improved and that it would be paved, and it would potentially connect all the way to Centennial Park Road, so that cars coming out of Centennial Park would be able to come down this road and then get to the signal here on Arena Avenue, rather than trying to make a left right, you know, by the fish processing plant there, where it's almost impossible to make a left during the summertime. So we're hoping that we can address a few things through the improvement of that road. But it's going to take a little bit, and it's going to take a little time and a little research. It's not.
No, but we did, you know, when we were deciding where to site the new building, you know, that was in mind. And where we're placing the new building will allow that future development to, you know, to expand and build a proper access road. We were thinking of that. Yes, correct.
It also led to us, you know, looking specifically how the parking lots were designed so that if a road was coming in from that side, an improved road, it would flow nicely, so that road then would continue on through the parking lots, through the drop-off pickup area that CO was talking about, and then you could exit out Arena Avenue.
Okay, I have some related questions, the parking lot. So I know that the watershed forum has like a corner drainage, and I know nothing about parking lot and stormwater runoff. But if we're doing 4,500 square feet above and beyond what we need to for landscaping, and we're planting 30 more trees than what's required, is there a way that we could go back to the drawing board and maybe just take away a couple of these strips, or and add stormwater drainage in a corner or something for, I'm just thinking about what you said with the campers utilizing this area, like everybody wants to park in this, sorry, I'm circling on my page, you can't see it. Right, yeah, right there. Everybody wants to park right there because it's closest to the river and it's closest to the trails. And so when I look at this, I kind of want to take away the middle landscaping strip or the ones on two sides so that we have at least an indication of like where people should park, and maybe use like the street lamps or something as a way to like make people a little bit more civilized when they are parking and going and for events and stuff. But it just seems like it's expensive. I know that landscaping and the additional above and beyond what we've got is expensive. And when I look at it, that's the area where I feel like there needs to be more flexibility than having those 3 strips and all of that landscaping and all of that extra square footage and all those extra trees that are above and beyond our code. Sorry, I know that I'm sure this has already taken a lot of
Yeah.
your time.
Again,
I'm just trying to brainstorm how we can
again,
add
look,
some flexibility there.
parking lots are challenging to design a good parking lot, and there are lots of competing interests between aesthetics and safety and stormwater concerns and traffic calming and all that. And I really think we've landed at a good compromise here. We're gonna have more parking than we had before, which is gonna help. Having more space makes things work better. And those landscape beds currently, as John mentioned, do deal with our stormwater. That's just modern, that's best practices. You deal with all your stormwater on site, infiltrate the water back on site, catch all the crud that develops in the parking lot. I think we got a pretty good layout. That is the best compromise. Like anything, it's a compromise. It's probably, if everyone's a little bit upset, that means you've landed in the right spot. So.
Oh yeah, I just think all of our comments are like pretty similar when it comes to the parking lot, and that we'd like to see a few more parking spaces and a little bit less landscaping. Not trying to be difficult, just I feel like everybody's made a comment like that. And it does seem like we have above and beyond what is required. 4,500 square feet more landscaping than is required and 30 more trees than is required. And we've made, variances.
In some
administratively.
of those trees, I think when this gets completed, the north end of that parking lot, the one we keep looking at all the time,
Mhm.
where the people park, where the trailhead is, that gets a lot of use
Mhm.
there. I think we're gonna end up field fitting, since we have a surplus of trees. Some of those trees should get moved. Currently, that trail is right on the edge of that parking lot. And what I would like to see happen is some of those trees, rather than being in those long strips, we're still gonna have those strips in there, but we're gonna move some of those trees to that north end and build a little tree buffer between the parking lot and that trail, and not have the trail just running on the side of the parking lot. So I think there's a chance to make some little adjustments there, make that more aesthetically pleasing.
Mhm. Yeah, I think the whole area is really beautiful, I think, because it's got the trailhead there and it's got the native vegetation all around. And I know on like item 6, where at the very end of the report, the summary of the staff determination, number 6, landscaping beds containing existing native vegetation count toward the right of way landscaping requirements. And so when I look at that, I wonder if that parking lot landscaping, like it's surrounded by trees, and sort of like at the hospital where on the edges of that parking lot, the parking lot at the hospital has like crazy landscaping in the parking lot, which is beautiful, and a little bit much. But what I do love about the hospital is that they've got the parks sort of at the edge of, they've got landscaping at the edges of the parking lot, which is, I think, a nice way to, it's a buffer, it's landscaping, but it doesn't put so much landscaping within the parking lot. It allows the landscaping to be on the edges of the parking lot, little benches, little sidewalks, like trees, like we already have it there, and it seems like that would be a cheaper and more practical way to have landscaping, have the aesthetics and more parking, basically. And so just like if there's on the record like, yeah, I know this is a big project, and I really love it when we can, I'm very grateful that we can retain existing native vegetation wherever we can get it, instead of going in and planting 150 additional trees inside of a parking lot, which is so hard in Alaska, to use a little bit of the trees that already exist as landscaping around the parking lot, so that you can use what you got and have a few more parking spots where you need them. Because I feel like this is only going to become a more and more and more popular place, it's,
Yes, hopefully.
yeah.
Mhm. Sure, if you want.
Can I bring up the hospital plan? I'm just gonna show you how similar each are, so they do have the same roads in it.
Yeah, and it just feels like, honestly, it feels like too much landscaping within the parking lot.
Well, and that's, we do have a little bit more landscaping than code requires. And I would say that's a result of, well, making sure we got all our bases covered, because I'm not sure how to put it.
I was gonna say, is the number of trees is one thing, but the number of rows is a separate issue in my mind, in that it provides for that stormwater drainage. And so that's what the engineers have said: to drain this big of an area, you need this much drainage area. And correct me if I'm wrong, but yeah, it's possible to reduce, I think, the number of trees, but I think we still need that space to collect stormwater.
How does
Right,
Fred
because
Meyers and Safeway collect their stormwater?
Safeway doesn't.
Okay.
Fred Meyers has a big pond off to the side. If you go down the east readout back there beyond Petco, there's a big giant pond that all the stormwater is collected and runs to. Which again, if we were to say we want more parking here and we don't deal with the stormwater here, then I have to build that detention pond somewhere else. The stormwater has to go somewhere, and the stormwater detention pond takes a lot of space. So
Are these
again,
leach fields, is that essentially what I'm reading here in the construction drawings?
correct, yes,
That makes
yes,
sense.
all that pavement, it's all paved, and then it runs to those areas where the landscaping is.
It's all
And it
angled.
can,
And there's no curbs. So
no curbs, correct, so it can run into those and infiltrate there.
These are the beds
Okay.
here,
Mhm.
so they run the whole length. So if they remove the beds, you're still gonna have this
Mm.
depression.
Well, or if you got rid of those beds and put in more parking, we would have to then we have to run the stormwater to somewhere else
Mhm.
and take up more land area for another this detention pond.
And does it
isn't
need
sewer
all
rock.
three of them, or could it
Yes.
potentially take the one out and make the other two a little bit wider, so that at least the middle ones were?
Pull-through spots.
Well, again, there are lots of competing interests there when it comes to traffic flow in pedestrian safety, the modern experts will tell you you don't want cars pulling through. That's not as safe. So there are a lot of competing interests to design a parking lot between aesthetics, stormwater, area for parking, safety. And I think this, again, is a good compromise. We've landed in a good spot here. And like building, if we were to put in more parking here and build this detention pond somewhere else, now we're encumbering that other land where we could be building more ball fields or doing whatever else we're going to do with the rest of the space. So I think dealing with it right there is really a pretty good solution.
Commissioner Burton. Yeah, and I agree. I mean, if we need to, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, code is stating that we need to have these drainage sites every third row. Is that what I?
No.
What was it?
Parking lot landscape.
Okay, well, we obviously need the drainage, right? And I agree that it lends itself to almost an automatic traffic control. And if we have this large parking area, I do like the idea of breaking up a large parking area with some aesthetically pleasing vegetation throughout the parking lot. So.
Yeah, and I think we're getting the best of both worlds here. We're getting a nice new modern parking lot that has all of those features. In that area to the south, where I keep talking about the school buses, is still going to be open. We're still going to have what I would call an old-fashioned parking lot that's just a sea of asphalt. Because like my wife learned to drive her motorcycle there. It's nice to have those big open spaces. So we're kind of getting the best of both worlds. We're going to keep that old parking lot to the south that's just wide open.
And that one doesn't need storm drainage.
If we were going to build it today, we would have to address it. It's been there, it's
Just
been
that
there
it's
forever.
existing,
Yeah.
There's also, not say, I believe for to the south.
Yes, we are dealing with it that way. It does drain to the southeast corner, and that's kind of the low spot and runs into the vegetation there, so.
So do you think that's where they'll encourage, or will they, how will you discourage people in the overflow camping to not go up into the other area and just take up six spaces?
I guess
and-
that's an operational issue that I have to talk to
Yeah.
the
Mhm.
Parks and Rec director.
Yeah, just because like she said, that everyone's gonna want to camp by the woods, not out
Yeah.
by the road.
Yeah. It might honestly would, I think, make for nicer camping, rather than having a bunch of campers in this just wide open sea of asphalt. Now you can have campers are long. I would imagine if I was gonna do it, I would have people park their campers parallel to those rows.
Right.
And you'd have trees between the campsites. I think it's make a better campsite.
It makes a nice campsite, but yeah, there's just so many out there in the summertime. Like
Yeah.
you wouldn't be able to fit very many. out
Yeah,
there.
for 3 weeks.
Yeah. Yeah, no, yeah.
That's,
Yeah.
yeah. And like I said, really, when it comes to the camping, how it's gonna lay out, that's really an operational issue. I mean, I guess I can't speak to that.
Yeah, when I look at that, I wonder if there's a way to have the drainage on the far side. So where you have,
Green space.
yeah, the green space, having that be a drainage so that you could at least have one row within that parking lot for summertime camping spots. So basically on the far side, that right side, take that drainage and put it at the edge of the parking space. Like, yeah, that feels like a really important use.
Well, we're building a parking lot that's gonna get used year round, every day, all the time. That's its primary focus. We're building a parking lot. And we're not building a campground. And it does get used for overflow camping for a few weeks out of the year. And I think to compromise our everyday year-round parking lot design to serve a few overflow campers for 3 weeks, I don't think that's the right compromise.
Yeah, I just didn't know. I didn't understand if there was if it was a big compromise to move that landscaping drainage like one row over or not. It didn't
It
seem,
would be a big, seems like it would save the budget quite a bit if that.
yeah,
Well,
If
it's
it was on
more,
the edge and then the trees on the edge that are existing were
would
where
be
that
required.
landscaping.
You could
yeah.
save a bunch of money on your parking lot.
it-
and have
it's more
flexibility over
complicated
there.
than that, because we're just looking at a plan view, and this doesn't take into the elevations and the difference in heights. And a struggle, if you read any of all the best practices and the specs and for work, trying to save existing vegetation, people do this all the time, let's save some money, we'll keep these existing trees for a vegetation. You can't dig and do construction activities right next to a bunch of existing trees. They don't survive. Basically, it just doesn't work out. It's not good for the trees. And those trees there are all a bunch of big, tall spruce trees. And if you just build a parking lot right up at the edge of them, they're all gonna, you squish the roots and you disturb the roots, and they're all gonna die and tip over and fall in the parking lot. So it's,
Those are
There-
pretty big. I mean, you got like how many ever 40, 50, 100 feet there. So, I mean, you could have,
Well, they've cleared a lot of that. haven't
They
Have
cleared
you seen
it for
lately?
the
I
new
don't know
parking
how,
lot.
how much is left of the green.
well,
strip.
Yeah.
it's cleared to where we're gonna build the parking. I mean, that's what we cleared up to
Right.
the edge of the parking, yes.
But I mean, like,
Beyond that, is there still green strip? I guess is what I
Yeah.
guess.
It's woods, yes, we've cleared
There is
up to
still
the
woods
edge of the
there,
woods
yeah.
there, yeah.
So I mean, I guess it like, if you only had like 10 feet, and yes, you would, but you have a bunch.
It would change the engineering grade and everything at this point, I'm sure. Yeah, but. Is the lot between that parking lot and the rodeo that's undeveloped? Is that potential for overflow parking at some point?
Yes, as the picture depicts, there's that big, we'll say rectangle of trees.
Mhm.
And we've cut about half of those trees. That's about 400 feet thick there of trees, and about 200 feet of that has been cut. That's where the new parking is going. So there's gonna be a 200-foot buffer between there and the rodeo grounds. That's staying.
What about the
Building there. Like, yeah, that area right there.
That is undeveloped, yes.
Is it possible to just cut it and make it a gravel parking lot for now for future
Looks like-
development?
Actually, in this plan, isn't the front part of it getting?
The front part will,
used
yeah.
up? Yeah, okay.
But I was just curious if it's just,
Yes, it's true to the west of the building, the Parks and Rec Department, that's kind of where all the Parks and Rec vehicles get parked. They have their greenhouse. There's 2 greenhouses there, I believe, the little shop building. That's kind of what happened. That's kind of the Parks and Rec's
Mhm.
facility stuff. And then to the west of it is kind of woods, and that is undeveloped.
and there's no plans to clear cut that for now and leave
No.
it like a dirt area that they can use and,
No,
okay.
I'll just add my 2 cents with regard to camping on the city lands. We do provide a number of campgrounds. And one of the things I question myself is, should we, be providing this much overflow when there's private campgrounds out there as well?
Mhm.
And so it's something to think about. Everybody does use public, or a lot of people use public ones, but they also use private ones like our RV parks and others. So there are some benefits to the local economy by providing, or I should say not providing perhaps overflow park.
Yeah, that's what I was asking is, are we going to continue offering that? Because it would seem fine to also not allow it anymore.
yeah. and that's
Or
for
at least if there was a way to like allow it in only certain areas or whatever. But if we are going to allow it, then I foresee these problems, I guess, is kind of what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Centennial, I think, charges for, yeah. Yeah, I think just my main concern is providing like 75%, like we're gonna vote today to say, yes, we think 75% of the recommended parking is enough. It's hard to,
Yeah.
that's a hard one for me to swallow, knowing how difficult it is right now. to park when there's an event.
But again, we're adding 205 spots.
I know, but it's still our total is 75% of the 749 required. And we're supposed to say, we're good with 564. That's our job today, right? To say yes to that. So
And I can
That's-
add that we did look at, you guys were talking about the area to the west of the existing sports center. So one of the initial plans did show a paved parking area going up in that area. So there is room to expand. So what this does is certainly buys us time. If we find that we are under parked, we do have space to expand.
And that's what I was wondering as well, is while we're there clearing, would it be feasible and more financially better to just do it now and just leave it dirt? Maybe we don't have to pave it and do all the lighting and all the extra stuff, but just clear it, leave it dirt, and for even just the employees can use that additional area. Or
Well, again, it depends what your goal is. I mean, we could make it look like driving down K Beach and clear cut it from one side to the other, and it's a big giant gravel lot. But there's no trees left for the birds to build nests in, and there's, you know, I mean, so right, we're gonna have 205 more parking spaces than we do today. If we went to a Brown Bears game last weekend and there was an extra 205 spots there, we would all be pretty happy about that. So I really do think we're gonna be adequately parked. We're gonna solve our parking problem with this project. And if we
Yeah.
don't solve it, there is space to do more parking in the future.
And I will add that when we were looking at this internally, we did look at a number of field houses across the country and to determine what levels they were parked at. And it ranged all over the place. Whoops. But after that analysis, we felt comfortable landing at this number based on what we saw across the country. So we think we're in a good spot here. We're not 100% sure, but we think we are.
Yeah. Do we have any numbers on what happens in the park? How many people were actually parking when we can't? I mean, I know that there's like nothing really provided in the first place, but I'm just curious. Events like that. We don't want to be, you know, few years down the road going, oh, what planning and zoning commission thought this was enough parking? Like now we have this new facility and we can't, you know.
We're gonna have 205 more spaces than we have today.
Yeah.
And we can easily add more if we need.
Yeah, and John, you were saying, you could keep these 3 drainages, but bump down the number of trees since we have 30 more than are required.
Right. And like you suggest, if, and CO suggested too, if it turns out that, our existing trails exposed too much to the parking area, it would be potential. One is to shift the trail back, but the other is to plant some additional trees and vegetation in there and try to provide a more adequate buffer. And yeah, and like I say, what our code requires is a fewer number. So if they decide to do something less, we will just add a note to the file that we okayed, you know, a fewer number, but that it still meets our code. And so those kinds of amendments are fairly common.
Commissioner Murray, I call for the question.
Let's call for the vote.
Commissioner Murray,
Yes.
Commissioner Topest,
Yes.
Commissioner Smithwick Gailey,
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson,
yes.
Commissioner Burton,
Yes.
and Chair Vadla.
Yes.
Motion passed.
All right.
Madam Chair, I need to be excused. I've got another commitment.
Yes, please.
And you still have 4 folks, so you're good.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to run away too, so is that gonna cause a problem?
No, we'll stop for.
Okay, great. All right, moving on to resolution PZ 2023-026, recommending that section 17.10.230, the rural might go in too far. Oh, yeah, sorry.
24.
Oh, man. No, thanks.
Sorry about that.
No, you're good. I'm bad.
No, you're perfect.
Yep. I was jumping ahead. Thank you, CO. You can stay. Resolution PZ 2023-024, granting a request for a variance to exceed the maximum building height standard for the construction of an indoor recreational facility located at 526 Arena Ave. May I have a motion to approve?
Commissioner Anderson, motion to approve resolution PZ 2023-024, granting request for a variance to exceed the maximum building height standard for the construction of an indoor recreational facility in the Parks and Recreational District located at 526 Arena Avenue.
Thank you. May I have a second?
A second.
Thanks. Can we have the staff report, please?
Yeah. The staff report can be found on page 34 of the printed packet. The City of Soldotna's project manager, CO Rudstrom, submitted a height variance application on behalf of the city for the development of an indoor recreational facility, which you just approved the conditional use permit for. The facility exceeds the maximum allowable height within the Parks and Recreational Zoning District. So in accordance with section 1710-410 of Soldotna Municipal Code, the application was submitted. The proposed structure will be addressed at 526 Arena Avenue. Let me pull up the. At 526 Arena Avenue is on 121.2 acre property, parcel number 060-01126. This parcel currently contains a boat launch, a campground, fishing access, walking paths. The zoning is Parks and Recreation, recreational. Adjacent lands to the north are the Kenai River. Lands to the east are undeveloped and they're zoned commercial as well as Parks and Recreational. To the south is the Sports Center, rodeo grounds, Little League fields with parcels zoned either commercial or Parks and Recreational as well. To the west lies the Sports Center, and the parcels are also zoned either commercial or Parks and Recreational. The variance is required to construct the proposed indoor recreational facility, the field house, which will be measuring 40 feet and 2 inches at its highest point. The maximum allowable height within the Parks and Recreational District is 36 feet. The adjacent property contains the Sports Center, which is also in excess of the maximum allowable building height in the zoning district. The proposed field house is shown on the attachments and would have a height of 40 feet, 2 inches. Our zoning code 1710-130 defines building height as the vertical distance above the average existing grade measured to the highest point of the building. Indoor recreational facilities are a conditional use permit, which you just approved. Our code allows an applicant to seek a variance from the Planning and Zoning Commission for the height requirement. It states that the intent of granting a variance is to provide relief when the strict application of the dimensional, parking, and landscaping requirements of this code would deprive a property owner of the reasonable use of real property. The variance application and the applicant's responses to the standards are included in your packet. The commission must find that all of the following general standards are met before a variance may be granted. And so we looked at Director Zarneski looked at these standards. And so the only standard that was not met for the zoning district is, again, that maximum building height, which you're considering now. And so for the 8 specific standards must be met before a variance may be granted. And here are each of the steps. Standard number 1, granting of the variance shall be in harmony with the general provisions of the zoning code and with the comprehensive plan. Staff finds that this standard is met. The purpose of the zoning code, as stated in 1710-110, is to provide for orderly development, lessen street congestion, provide for stable residential, commercial, and industrial development, provide adequate open space for light and air, protect and stabilize the value of property, promote fire safety, public order, protect the public health and general welfare, prevent overcrowding, and stimulate systematic development of transportation, water, sewer, schools, parks, and other public facilities. The field house will be an athletic and community event facility with a multipurpose sport court, removable turf field, and an ADA accessible elevated walking and jogging track. The Parks and Recreation Department is a stable employer and contributor to the area economy and provides public health services and treatment facilities. Chapter 3 of the Parks, Trails, and Recreational has a goal number 7 of Envision Soldotna 2030, and it states incorporate recreation facilities into the city's economy. The field house will further the goal of incorporation into the city's economy, and it will be large enough to host statewide sporting and competition events. Additionally, the field house will be able to accommodate large-scale events such as meetings and trade shows. These events will draw residents from around the state into our local economy who stay for days and contribute to our local commerce. Goal 21D of the capital improvement recommendations of the Recreation and Trails Master Plan states, quote, to seek funding to renovate and expand the sports center, addressing the following needs: a large multipurpose area, parentheses field house, for recreation and social events, classes, and other needs, includes use as basketball, volleyball, soccer on turf, a skate park, equipment, batting cages, elevated track, and other uses. Staff finds that the proposed project is consistent with Envision Soldotna 2030, the Recreation Trails Master Plan, and the general provisions of the code. Condition number 2. Special conditions or circumstances exist that are peculiar to the land or structures involved, which do not apply to other lands or structures in the same zoning district. The staff finds the standard is met. The field house has specific and special circumstances that are peculiar to the structure, which is required to serve the needs of the community. The indoor field area with a 3-lane walking track in the mezzanine requires a building height of 40 feet 2 inches, which is 4 feet greater than the building height of 36 allowed for in our code. Standard 3, special conditions or circumstances have not been caused by the actions of the applicant, and such conditions or circumstances do not merely constitute financial hardship or inconvenience. Staff finds this standard is met. Staff finds that the conditions of the circumstance that require the variance are not merely a financial hardship or inconvenience. Staff also finds that to provide for the enhancement of the community quality of life and to accommodate the amenities sought by the public, the field house requires a building height slightly greater than the city standard. Standard number 4, granting of the variance shall not result in material damage to other properties in the neighborhood nor otherwise be detrimental to the public health, safety, or welfare. Staff finds the standard met. The variance will not result in damage to neighboring properties, nor will it be detrimental to public health, safety, or welfare. 5th standard, granting of the variance shall represent the minimum action necessary to allow the reasonable use of the land or structure. Staff finds the standard is also met. The field house will provide a public area for recreational activities and community events and will enhance the quality of life of residents in the city, which matches the intent of the Parks and Recreational Zoning District. Staff finds that approving the variance would represent the minimum action necessary to allow the reasonable use of the land and structures. 6th standard, granting of the variance shall not permit a principal use that is not otherwise permitted in the zoning district. Staff finds this standard is also met. With the exception of the height standard, the indoor recreation facility meets all other requirements in our code and is conditionally allowed principal use within the Parks and Recreational District. 7th, granting of the variance shall not be based upon other non-conforming land uses or structures within the same zoning district. Staff finds this standard is met. Although the sports center is legal non-conforming in height, the applicant states that the request is not based upon other non-conforming uses or structures in the same district. The request is based solely on providing a building that will accommodate the desired uses. And 8th, the property does not owe any sales taxes or property taxes or billing issues to itself. So in accordance with 1710-425, the city did mail 20 notices to property owners within 300 feet. We received no comments or writing. Additionally, I sent this draft to our city's public works director, streets and maintenance director, utility manager, and building official. No comments were received from staff. And so based on this, we recommend that the approval of resolution PZ 2023-024, approving the height variance request. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, there's no public. We can open and close that. Are there any commission comments or questions for staff? This one seems a lot more straightforward. Seeing none, let's call for the vote.
All right. Commissioner Murray? Oh, Commissioner Murray left, sorry. Excuse absence. Commissioner Topfest?
Yes.
Commissioner Smithwick Ailey,
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson,
Yes.
Commissioner Burton,
Yes.
and Chair Vadla.
Yes.
Motion passed.
And I will have to.
All right,
for
Charlene, I'm
chairship.
sorry I didn't give you enough of a heads up. I must have wrote down the time wrong. Caitlin's heading out. Are you okay chairing the rest of the meeting?
Yeah, I can. We are on, I printed this out. Let me find it.
I think we're on now page 3 of that
Yeah,
script.
so it's resolution PZ 2023-25.
That's exactly right.
Okay, recommending the section 1710-335 landscaping be amended to provide consistency with standards in the commercial zoning district. May I have a motion to approve, please?
I move to approve resolution PZ 2023-025, recommending that section 1710-335 landscaping be amended to provide consistency with standards in the commercial zoning district.
Have a second?
I second.
Okay, may we have the staff report, please?
Yes, thank you. So you might recall that over the past year or so, we've had a couple of different instances where we've had storage facilities being constructed, and we've explained through the staff report that one section of code says they need to have a 6-foot high fence, and another section of code says we need to have an 8-foot high fence. What this does is rectifies that and brings them both into the same number. And so in our commercial district, it's an 8-foot requirement. And in our landscaping section, it requires a 6-foot. So what we're recommending is that to make them consistent, that we make them both an 8-foot high fence around storage yards. So the landscaping code would be modified to reflect that. And that's the essence of this amendment. That's the end of the report.
Okay, the public comment period is now open. Is there any member of the public who wishes to speak on this item? Is there anybody on Zoom besides myself? Think so?
There is no one.
Okay, so with no one else wishing to speak, the public comment period is now closed. Are there any commission comments or questions for staff?
Commissioner Anderson here. Curious about on fences with what our city code says about barbed wire. Is that something that we can allow or disallow or recommend that we write in that you can't have barbed wire, or it's a conditional use type thing?
Our code is silent on barbed wire. It's really a matter of, I think, of security for the person that is erecting the fence. We've had, I think most of them probably have had barbed wire. I think there's a few that don't. I think the one on K Beach doesn't have barbed wire. But it's what we find is that when we hear that they want barbed wire, it's just for security reasons, not aesthetic or anything else.
Okay.
So is there a way that we could disallow it?
You could, I think, I think you might run into instances where they, if they're putting up a fence, they want to have it for security and they want the barbed wire. I don't know enough about these things. What my first thought is, well, if it's 8 feet high, maybe you don't need barbed wire.
Yeah.
And then, but I also don't know what kind of, what something is protected, how interested someone would be. I mean, if someone wants to get in somewhere, they're going to get in, whether it's 8 foot, 6 foot, or barbed wire. So, yeah, so barbed wire, I think if you wanted to, it could be add, or some provision could be made, or some definition could be expanded to say that a decorative fence does not include barbed wire. So, yeah, I think it's an option before you, yep.
So would
So
we
say
need to
we
make a
wanna-
motion
We would
to,
need to construct something to
Um,
amend.
let me do this. Let me look at, see currently whether there's a definition.
my thought would be to make it a conditional use where you're following everything else for the fences, but you want to use barbed wire or razor wire, then you would have to go to the planning and zoning maybe, or the city council or someone to approve the use because of this reason. And I think that would be from the city standpoint of aesthetics and from the individual owner of security.
I just feel like there's other things that you can do. I've seen, I was trying to look at a picture. I can't remember when it was, but I've seen like where they do like a vertical sheet metal strips and then they alternate them like this,
Yeah.
like on the top of the fence or something that just would be more visually appealing, but just like, just if it wasn't allowed, then they'd have to come up with a different security solution that was. But I guess if they did a conditional use, then we maybe would have the opportunity to prove whether we thought it was
Right.
beautiful or not. I don't know. But
Yeah,
that might not be practical, but.
I think that's one of the problems that we've faced in the past is just a decorative fence. We don't have a definition for it as I'm looking. And so it's fairly subjective.
Yeah.
You might think it's decorative and someone else might think it's ugliest things, so.
No, I think that we did run into that.
Yeah.
Even with the,
Slats
with
and the,
slats or no slats.
right.
Is
That's-
is it defined? I can't remember. I
It's not.
remember our discussion about that.
It's
but-
not, I
yeah.
just looked and so it just basically says a decorative fence. So then basically what we're looking at is just taking the standard definition from the dictionary and applying that.
Mhm.
But if you wanted to, it's something that we can look into is dig around and see if anybody has come up with a definition for decorative.
Well, and also what's available, because we do have fencing companies around here that do the kind with the slats in them.
Yeah. And
But
if
I
you-
don't know if we have.
And if you don't
much
think
else
those
available.
are, if you don't think chain link is
Mhm.
decorative, either with or without slats, that can be specified too.
Mhm.
It's up to you guys. It certainly will probably have an impact. Well, yeah, I shouldn't say that. I was thinking it might have an impact on the cost.
Mhm.
But I don't know the different material types and whether one is cheaper than another. So it's, I'm
Right.
not gonna go
If it
there.
was cost prohibitive or not, right?
Do you remember the resolution that came across near PCHS
Mhm.
where they wanted that
It
new
was
lot
Integrity Electric. I
and we
believe.
made him go 8 foot? He wanted 6 foot and barbed wire and we said 8 foot is what code says. So he did the 8 foot. And to my recollection, I don't think he's put barbed wire up.
I don't think he has either.
So I think the 8 foot might kind of
Mhm. But I
deter
also
that because it
think
is
if
pretty
we-
high.
If 8 foot is required and we say, that barbed wire is not allowed, or it's harder to say it's not allowed because of the ones that already have it will be grandfathered in. But I mean, that would be a place to start,
I would think so.
because I do think there are other solutions. If you needed beyond the 8 feet to have something that was, painful to get over, I guess.
Yeah, a deterrent,
Yeah.
a deterrent fence or a deterrent topper.
So,
Or
yeah,
honestly, at the top of 8 feet, if you angled the barbed wire in, which I don't know if that's as effective, probably not as effective because you could go over it more easily. Yeah. Yeah, you would need to go out.
Yeah, I think that's
how it deters.
how I
Okay.
typically do it.
Mhm.
so, at this point, if that is something that you do want to pursue, then, I think, probably a motion to postpone and, request that we, look at, see if we can develop a definition or some language that would address what you're after.
Add in verbiage to this and do it all at once. Is that what
Mhm.
you're saying?
Right, rather
I
than
like
try to
that.
construct it
And then
now.
also if we could also have some research on what a decorative fence is. Just because if we're addressing this section right now, would be the time to do it.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we need to just move to postpone
Yeah, and I think you need to move to postpone. I'm just trying to think what date will work best. I'm gonna be out for a week and a half in December. So it might be best to actually move to our first meeting in February
Okay.
for this. That'll give us enough time to do some
Okay.
research and come back with some things and maybe even, see if we can find some good examples from other communities. Sure.
Did someone inquire about this or are we just kind of cleaning up some loose ends?
Cleaning up
Okay.
inconsistencies.
So nothing's waiting on this?
Nope.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Do we need some verbiage when we ask to postpone?
Yeah, no, you just, you would just make a motion to postpone, and if you're okay with it, make it a motion to postpone until the first meeting in February.
Okay.
You want to do that? or you want me to?
Sure. Go ahead.
Commissioner Anderson would like to make a motion to postpone. Do you want me to read it out? PZ 2023 dash 025, recommending that section 17.10.335 landscaping be amended to provide consistency with standards in the commercial zone district, be postponed until the first meeting in February, and to include decorative barbed wire type verbiage and a conditional use on that.
The vote on the motion to postpone.
We need this.
Oh,
Was there
second.
a second? Yeah.
Sorry. All right.
It's second.
Thank you, Charlene. And then so the vote to postpone the motion. Murray and Chair Fadla are excused. Topfest,
Yes.
Smith Wiggley,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
and Burton.
Yes.
Motion postponed.
Okay, we are on to the next one. Resolution PZ 2023-026, recommending that section 17.10.230 rural residential district and section 17.10.240 single family, two-family residential district be amended to allow daycare centers as permitted principal uses. May I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve resolution number PZ 2023-026, recommending that section 17.10.230 rural residential district and section 17.10.240 single family / two family residential districts be amended to allow daycare centers as permitted principal uses.
Okay, may I have a second?
Second.
Okay, may we have the staff report, please?
All right. The resolution is on page 54 of your packet. Director Zarneski wrote in his memo about the current requirements of obtaining a conditional use permit for daycare within the rural residential or single family, two family residential zoning districts under our code. To date, there have been no complaints or known issues with those daycares operating within the city's residential neighborhoods. He goes on to say that quality daycares are important to parents, their children, and to the city's workforce and economic well-being. Access to high-quality daycares can change children's lives, help families escape poverty, and improve our local economy. Unfortunately, the number of state licensed daycares has declined within the city. This has made it difficult for parents to find available, stable, and affordable childcare while they're at work. Staff recommends in this resolution that daycares be allowed as a principal permitted use and for an administrative permit to be required rather than a conditional use permit. This would allow for quicker permitting of permits. It would reduce the cost of prospective daycare operators, and it would maintain the current standards that are listed in our code, such as the requirement that daycare obtain its state licensing and screen outdoor play areas. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. The public comment period is now open. Is there any member of the public who wishes to speak on this item?
There's no one on the public.
Thank you. And there's nobody on Zoom. Are there any commission comments or questions for staff? Oh, the public comment period is now closed. Sorry. Are there any commission comments or questions for staff? Not hearing any, I'll call for the vote.
Commissioner Topfest,
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson,
Yes.
Commissioner Burton,
Yes.
Commissioner Smith Gailey,
Yes.
and Chair Vadla and Murray are excused. So motion passed.
Okay, thank you. We are on to resolution PZ 2023-027, recommending that section 17.10.250 multifamily residential district be amended to update general standards of minimum lot size. May I have a motion to approve?
Move to approve resolution number PZ 2023-027, recommending that section 17.10.250 multifamily residential district be amended to update general standards of minimum lot size.
Second? Have a second?
Second.
Thank you. May we have the staff report, please?
Yes, thank you. So we're trying to do two things in this resolution before you. One is to make the standard for duplexes in the multifamily zoning district for lot sizes to be the same as they are in the single family or two family district. That's the first thing. And then the second thing that we're trying to do is to provide for greater density. And the way we would do that, and by density, I mean more units per lot area. And the way we would do that would be to standardize the number of square feet required for each additional unit. And what I'll do is I'll go through both of those and try to provide a little more detail. So right now, we'll talk about the difference in standards for multifamily versus single family for duplexes. So right now, to build a duplex in the multifamily zone, our code requires us to have a lot size of 8,400 square feet. And it says you also have to have an additional 1,600 square feet for the second unit if it's of the second unit of the duplex. If it's a single family, 2,000 square feet, an additional 2,000 square feet if it's a two-bedroom unit, and an additional 2,400 square feet if it's a three-bedroom unit. So what you end up then with is the first unit is 8,400 square feet, and then you're adding either 1,600, 2,000, or 2,400 square feet for for a size of the lot being between 10 and 10,800 feet. In our single family and two family zoning district, however, we just require a flat 8,400 square feet for the duplex. So what this proposal does is suggest that the multifamily code be structured like our single family and two family code. It would create a uniform minimum lot size for duplexes across all of our zoning districts that allow them. So it's interesting actually, because in our multifamily zone, we're trying to encourage multiple units, but in this instance, it actually requires more land than that same duplex would require in a single family district. So that's the very first thing that it does. The second thing that it does, this is another interesting part of our code. In our multifamily district right now, our minimum lot size is based on the total number of units and the number of bedrooms in each unit. So we use the duplex example. Basically, we're looking at 2 units. If you're looking at a fourplex, you're looking at 4 units. And it uses that same kind of mathematical procedure where the first unit of that fourplex is 8,400 square feet. And then for each additional unit, you're adding either an additional 1,600, 2,000, or 2,400 square feet, depending on the number of bedrooms. And what we're recommending is that we get rid of that graduated increase in lot size based on number of bedrooms and replace it with a flat increase for every additional unit. So instead of, as you can see the math there, our current code, the first unit 8,400, and the second, third, and fourth units would have an additional 2,400. So the lot size would be a total of 15,600 for a fourplex of 3-bedroom apartments. And what we're suggesting is that we just standardize it and put it at an additional 1,600 square feet, regardless of the number of bedrooms. And that would result in a lot size being 13,200. So again, what it does is it provides for greater density in a smaller area. And that is the intent, considering our lack of affordable housing. We felt this would be an appropriate way to try to encourage development. And it should mean also to the developer that they, that increase in density should be good for their pocketbook. They should be able to build more units in a smaller area and hopefully turn a buck. So it acts as an incentive for development. And that's the end of the staff report. Be happy to answer any questions on it.
Thank you. The public comment period is now open. Is there any member of the public who wishes to speak on this item? Anybody on Zoom?
There's no one, Charlene.
Thank you. With no one else wishing to speak, the public comment period is now closed. Are there any commissioner comments or questions for staff?
Commissioner Anderson here. Thank you, John. I like what this is going to do. I think it would also help out a lot to revisit where you can build these, like where our zoning is for everything. I know I've brought it up before. I know that staff is stretched pretty thin. But I think this would help, but I think it would help the most to plan and zone where we want these things. And then that would bring in developers as well, because maybe there's areas right now that they want to build in, but they can't. I don't know. I haven't heard of any personally, but I feel from the planning and zoning department, that is where we would make our biggest change, is planning and zoning for low income housing. And especially with what's going on there at the RV park, and they're going to be looking for houses and builders. It's an opportunity for them, hopefully. And this would assist in that as well. So I think that this is good. And I think that reviewing what we have out there right now, is this it here, Jen? Yeah, I saw it when the email came out, but I was just asking if this is the same map that I was looking at. So this is essentially where they can build these places at now. Is that correct?
That's correct. They can also build in the commercial and limited commercial district with a conditional use permit.
Okay, and we don't have an overlay of that right now.
I can.
It's just a total square footage / lot area in Soldotna, where if we could just visualize it and say, okay, well, you know what, maybe it's there's quite a few areas, or it's like, I mean, there's like single lots and right next to lots that you can't, it's like, there's really no rhyme or reason to any of this, in my opinion, just looking at it. And I'm sure there's areas like down Big Eddy or wherever, well, Big Eddy's not us, but that we could put this stuff in, and right now they can't.
$8,400 square feet for a duplex, or 8,400 plus 1,600?
In the multifamily zoning district, it's 8,400 plus an additional amount currently. So I'm not sure. Are you asking?
Okay, so in
what
this,
it is now, or what it is in the if this passes?
what it is now in the single family district is 8,400 plus 1,600 for
No.
a duplex?
Just a flat 8,400.
Okay, so the reason I ask is, if a duplex can be 8,400, couldn't a fourplex also, are we talking about the footprint?
We're talking about the lot size.
But the footprint of an 8,400 square foot duplex,
No, we're not talking about the size of the duplex. We're just talking about the size of the lot that the duplex sits on.
okay. So I guess it just seems to me that a fourplex should be able to sit on the same size lot as a duplex. And maybe we're even adding too much, like we do need the parking space.
Exactly. That's.
Is it for the parking that it increases?
that's
Okay,
correct.
okay. Because the footprint should be the same, and we have a percentage that you can't fill anyway with
correct. We have
Okay.
yeah, the lot,
Building ratio to the lot size?
yeah,
Or-
I'm trying to blank, what is it, Jen?
Oh my gosh.
It's 30%
Coverage,
coverage.
yeah.
Okay,
So, so there is that standard, that's there as well.
and is 80, how many acres is 8,400 square feet?
Oh, it's like a
A
tenth
third?
of an acre.
Tenth?
It's tiny.
Okay.
I think probably some of our smaller lots in town are 14,000, 12,000 square feet. But yeah, it's a small lot, 8,400 square feet.
0.19.
43,560 square feet is an acre.
Okay.
Is that correct?
43,560.
So 0.19,
acres.
so it's under a quarter acre
Yeah, well,
that we'd potentially be able to put a duplex, or that we currently can put a duplex on,
Yeah,
okay.
43,000.
And then 10,000 would be about 20% of an acre, 20,
0.197 is 8,600.
okay.
and so in this map, the zoning map, it's a little confusing because there's two blue zoning districts.
And the river.
The dark blue is, is the multifamily, and the lighter blue, maybe we should work
Rural.
on get some new colors.
I know. Rural residential.
Is rural residential, and then the yellow is commercial and the red is limited commercial. So that gives you an idea of where they're allowed. They aren't allowed in the dark green or the light green. Those are both Parks and Rec and institutional. And that really then leaves you with the purple, which is single family, two family. And that's about it. So I don't know if that helps, Tom, as far as getting a visual, as far as, you know.
So
how
dark,
much-
yeah, dark blue, purple and yellow? Is
No,
that-
sorry, dark blue, yellow and red.
Dark blue, yellow and red. And the yellow down the highway is pretty much already off limits, right? I mean, once we get our commercial core district to go through, I mean, that's our plan.
Right. Well, no, actually, I'm trying to remember whether residential, I'd have to go back and look at it, whether residential was allowed. Do you recall, Jen?
It was mixed use, I think, was
Mixed
what they
use,
had
okay.
proposed.
Oh,
Right.
And also with the conditional use permit, you can do multifamily within the rural residential. So the blue, so if you think about it,
The light blue.
yeah,
is
the light
also-
blue would allow multifamily, the dark blue allows multifamily, yellow and the red.
okay. So purple and green are off limits.
Yeah, so all the greens, the purple, and then this tiny little strip of pink is single family right here.
Mhm.
And that would be the only places you couldn't have more than a duplex then, or I mean, you couldn't have the.
And then if this passed, would we update this map? Would it, because it would affect it, right?
We're not changing the zoning map, we're only making amendment to the actual code, so it would apply to,
So that they can build fourplexes on a smaller piece of
Oh,
land.
I see. So if you wanted to subdivide a larger lot, you could do that to a smaller.
Yeah,
You
because
could.
maybe some of the blue ones that you potentially could build multi-family housing on right now are currently too small for what they might want to build. Is that what you're saying?
Correct.
Okay,
So they might
so-
get included.
So they might, so they'll still be the same color, because they'll still be zoned for multifamily,
Right.
but they'll be more accessible to a builder because
Okay.
they could actually put something on it that makes sense.
and we saw that twice this past year, and so that's
Okay.
why it's
Motivated
before you,
us,
yeah.
Okay,
Well, that's good.
okay.
Okay, are there any other questions? I'll call for the vote then.
All right. Commissioner Murray and Vadla are excused, so Commissioner Topfest,
Yes,
Smithwick Gailey,
Yes,
Anderson,
Yes.
and Burton.
Yes.
Motion passed.
okay, thank you. Next is unfinished business and seeing none. New business, there's none. Public comments without prior notice. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to comment?
There's no one.
Okay, and nobody's online. Thank you. Public comments closed. Informational items, none. Reports, mayor and council reports. Is there any council members or the mayor present?
There are not.
Okay, city manager report.
He's not here either.
We'll go to the director of ED&P report and / associate planner report.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Just a couple things. Let's see here. Actually, just one thing. I just want to let you know that the riverfront redevelopment plan was brought forward to the planning, to the council in the joint work session. And it went very well. We're at the stage now where the consultant is taking comments that were made and putting them into the document. And we are now receiving parts of that document for our review. And within the next week, I hope that we will have a complete draft document. And that will come before you depending on when we actually receive it. So if we receive it as early as next week, it's possible that we could do something this month yet. Although I would prefer to put it off until January just because everybody's busy with the holidays. So what I'm thinking is either possibly our first meeting in January that'd be on the agenda, or if it's not ready by that time, we would hold a special meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission to review the plan and make a recommendation on it to council. But that's the biggest thing. So it's taking shape and we should have something to you shortly. That's all I've got. Jen, what do you have?
Wishing everybody Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays. And then to report on our code violations, we are actively addressing 4 different ones on Arlington, Paces, Turnbuckle, and Lark. Hopefully, the end of this week, we can close out the violation on Lark and have it as being in compliance, as well as the one on Turnbuckle. We're hoping in the next couple of weeks that we have that one in compliance, and so we can focus our energy on Arlington and Paces. Oh, yeah. Thank you, Charlene.
Great, thank you. We will go on to commissioner comments, and Murray's not here. So we'll go Smithwick. Ailey, do you have any comments?
Yes, I did have one thing. I don't remember when we did the sign code about the LED signs, if we addressed brightness or how we addressed brightness.
It's-
And my,
Yeah, we did talk about brightness and brightness levels.
and we didn't define anything.
Oh, no, we did, but we didn't get to the point of adoption.
Okay.
That was the point of time where annexation became a priority.
Yeah.
And
So,
so
yeah.
we don't have any standards at this point for LEDs or for electronic message senders.
Okay. So I hope that we can address that, but this actually might be able to be an inside job because the city of Soldotna one on K Beach is way too bright.
Oh, yeah.
And it's blinding because you come, it's dark and then it's there and you actually can't read it because it's so bright. Yeah. So I'm just saying it's probably adjusted for the summer. And that
Okay.
probably works when it's light till 2 a.m. But right now it is like, I've had other people complain to me about it who don't know that I that I maybe could tell someone at the city, but I keep forgetting to do it. So I just wanted to do it here. It is literally blinding. And if you did try to read it, then you look and then the next thing you come to is the sign that says how many moose have been killed on the roadway and you literally can't see anything anymore because you glanced over at that sign. It's funny, but it's also true.
Well, if they use a black background, that is a white background, black, it's literally a spotlight right in the face.
Okay, I was just gonna ask about the colors, if it was certain messages or colors that were causing the problem. and
I
it's the
can't
white-
read it. It's a,
Oh, it's
like,
a
and
black-
then like, if you look at it, then your eyes will dilate and then you will look back to the road and then it's totally dark there. There's no more lights until you get down to Skyline.
Okay.
Or like Cook Inlet Academy's lights or something like that. So you just like get like assaulted by this light and then you go in pitch dark and you're going around that corner and whatever. So
Yeah, it goes like, it starts black background, talking about time and temp, and then it goes to like this giant white one, talking about road safety.
You're the one that hit the moose then. Yeah. So even if there's no law about it, it's like, no one's being able to read that message,
Right. it
which
doesn't-
is the
yeah.
number one intent, right? And then
Right,
it's also
yeah.
causing a safety hazard. So.
We will pass
Thank you.
that along.
Okay.
Yep, Thanks.
Someone has the ability to like make some adjustments, I'm sure. So, okay, I think that was my only comment.
I can add on to that, like in the draft from the Riverfront redevelopment, they straight out disallowed LED signs. I don't know if you saw that,
I did.
but that was like, oh, can we actually do
draft
that?
for what?
Just straight, oh, and for the Riverfront redevelopment area, it just straight out disallows LED interchangeable signs.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that could be
And we
possible.
just
Could we-
invested one in our Wayfinder signage. Like, yeah. Oh, I did have one other question though. If they're almost done with that Riverfront redevelopment, should we be working on our commercial core thing to grab onto the tail end of that
Yeah.
before things start happening?
Well, one of the things that will come out of the master plan is an implementation recommend section or it'll have essentially the steps that our consultant feels are necessary to move this forward.
Mhm.
And one of those is a new regulatory framework for this area.
Yeah.
And so I think we've got a really good start on it,
Mhm.
but based on the outcome of the plan and whether it gets adopted or not, it may require us to refine what we've already done, and I'm sure it will. So what we'll do is get the plan adopted, take a look at what kind of land uses the plan is suggesting. Take a look at what we did and try to marry the two and make it work.
Mhm.
But I think we're actually in we've got a pretty good starting place at this point. There'll be some minor changes to it. But yeah, what they're recommending is to give you an idea is essentially like an overlay for the same area or a similar area that we looked at
Mhm.
that would have 3 different districts. One would be the mixed use district. One would be a Sterling Highway frontage district, and the other one would be a Parks district, and it would create standards for those 3 areas. So that'll be happening the first part of next year.
Okay, and we would probably have just a work session on that
I think
as
so.
soon as possible. Okay.
Right.
All right.
Okay, Commissioner Anderson, please.
Yes, thank you. I second the light thing, by the way, officially on the record. And then congrats to Jenna on her certified planner test that she passed recently. So that's a big accomplishment. So good job, Jen. And that's it. Thanks again for all you guys do. It's a lot of hard work. So appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Burton?
Yeah, thank you guys. A lot of work put into all of this. It's kind of exciting getting rolling on some of these and being able to be a part of some of these. With the entryway into the sports center, I am kind of interested in what kind of report, like the conversation has been had at one point, but it would be interesting to see if we could press into that a little more regarding the possibility of whether the need is truly there for a stoplight, arena, highway avenue, whatever it's called. Even in the summertime with Little League baseball going on, the Home Run Avenue and then the Arena Avenue are just nightmares to navigate. So I think it's worth pursuing that to see if we can get some control in one of those areas. Yeah, and thank you. Hey, congratulations. And yeah, thanks.
Okay, thanks. And Chair Badla is not here. And so my comment will be have everybody have a happy holidays and congratulations, Jen. And I guess we'll adjourn.
Charlene?
Yeah?
I
Can
just
you?
want to add my congratulations too. I'm sorry, Jen.
I told everybody in City Hall, but I didn't tell you guys, so I apologize. But the AICP, if you don't know, is the American Institute of Certified Planners. It's the only nationally national certification for planners. And it's hard to get through it. It's hard to do it. It's hard to study for it. And a lot of people don't make it on the first try. So kudos to you, Jen. It's really a great accomplishment. So it's nice to have someone in the city now with that certification because I don't.
Wow, that's awesome. Okay, so we'll have a motion to adjourn. Do we need a motion? Can't remember.
Nope.
We don't? Okay, then have a great holiday, everybody, and we are adjourned. Thank you.
Thanks.
Feel better, Charlene.